So I have a little podcast or rant on Becky Lynch and Pedro Morales and WWE, and it has to do with like Bob Iger and Disney and Apex Legends and what the real purpose of things are. Like Disney, WWE, it appeals to kids, but is it really for kids? Is it what you want to teach your kids, etc.? I also recently watched Mr. Rogers too, which is the "Would You Be My Neighbor" thing, which is very interesting. Um, this whole thing about WWE not being creative with their storylines, according to SI.com, and Becky Lynch are regurgitating that, pushing the same people. Charlotte Flair, um, Becky Lynch not getting a push. I think that's all illusion stuff. Like, first of all, it's not even real. Like, they're probably going to push Becky Lynch unless some people aren't going to push her. I guess it's Vince, so you never know. Maybe they won't push her. But in any case, Apex Legends. People are just making Fortnite clones. They want to make money. Disney wants to make money. WWE wants to make money. These Fortnite clones are influencing a new generation of Disney fans. Becky Lynch and the fans who hate Roman Reigns, who might not have heard of John Cena, and might not have heard of Hulk Hogan, and might not have heard of Bruno Sammartino. Like, the memory and memorizing what happens in wrestling is so short. Like, because there's so many episodes, like, people can barely remember. I'm very smart, and I came from, like, a science high school in New York City. Like, even I have trouble remembering what happens every year. So, people are just growing up with, like, the Cena and Roman Reigns generation. Who knows what's next now that Roman Reigns is possibly gone, that, they're just hating. They're watching product they hate, and they're growing up doing it. There's like always like this middle aged guy at a in the crowd who was like hating on everything, including CM Punk, which is actually a very good storyline against the man, but also like just pushing Vince people. After a bunch of channels anyway. Um, so WWE, Vince McMahon, Republican, face God, the terrorist angle, the angle on Eddie Guerrero's death. So he's obviously terrible. But some people aren't as obviously terrible. And I wonder, it's not. Let me tell you the story. Everyone knows ESPN is run by Disney. So, like, a couple of years back when Battle of the Sexes was coming out, I forget if it was that year or if it was an ESPN article. But anyway, they ran a piece on how male athletes will always be better than female athletes because a male athlete beat one of the Williams sisters in an intergender tennis match. And I don't know why you have to mention that tennis of all sports, where it doesn't really involve like male versus female stuff, as isn't very physical, not directly. I don't think they're gonna get injured from like there's a whole net and like you're 100 feet away from each other. But in any case, like there was this whole movie that came out around this time where there's a Billie Jean King that U.S. tennis, whatever the A stands for in the USTA, um, Billie Jean King faced a man in tennis, and I assume she beat him. I didn't actually watch the movie, but in any case, like it was a comedy. Um, Bob Iger is like supposedly anti-Trump and all that stuff, but like unless ESPN says like horrible things, like people get injured during sports, and like, and I can't even say it's for money because like ESPN has lost money, but like it definitely hurts the Disney brand when you're doing stuff where it's like anti-female, which brings me to Becky Lynch. Um, I don't know how progressive WWE has gotten. Like, I had this whole thing about how, like, they had Bruno Sammartino. Some of this was actually run by Vince Jr. Bruno Sammartino was world champ because of the Italian demographic. Pedro Morales because of the Spanish-speaking demographic. Bret Hart because of the Canadian demographic. La Resistance won a tag team belt at Montreal, I think. I don't remember. I think it's someone in Canada. Tajiri won in Japan the tag team champs titles. But in any case, there hasn't really been a world title change that was that progressive since like Eddie Guerrero. I bet it was like Jinder and like Kali. And I understand Vince did it for like business purposes, but like for giving. I mean, Morales is. I'm sorry, Martino's. Obviously, San Martino's title reign was really long. It was one of the longest ever. So, like, I don't know what's changed that he can't do that anymore. And even that's like a business decision rather than like you feel like he's the guy who's actually. Actually, that's the thing about WWE. Vince doesn't push who's actually popular anymore or who can actually draw. Um, I don't know why. Is it because there's no NWA anymore? Is it because he was not being the NWA? This whole thing on the Bischoff a 3 weeks thing on AEW versus WCW. How he thinks AEW would not be as close to WCW, which I'm pretty sure Bischoff was just saying because he ran WCW. But there's the whole thing that WWE's been pretty much a monopoly for like almost 20 years, like 15 to 20 years. Some of these people who didn't like Jinder as champ, even though like I was for the anti-Republican, anti-people that Vince would push thing, even though Vince did push him because of the Indian demographic, I'm assuming, um, are pushing for Becky Lynch to get pushed, and they're very emotional about it. Listen, Allen. Sports Illustrated was very like there's criticizing how Vince is just doing the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. It's not the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. She didn't come in with beer. Um, Wrestling is an art. You're Sports Illustrated, so you're not exactly like a film critic. You're not reading Gravity's Rainbow. You're not recreating Gravity's Rainbow. You're not making like a Jean-Luc Godard film or reviewing that. Like you're a Sports Illustrated writer. Like this is actually very progressive for for any wrestling thing actually. Pushing the woman. It's not a Vince McMahon picked woman. Reminds me of Danielson being pushed. Reminds me. Will she get into a thing with like the Ball Sisters or something? Which is more what I'm wondering. Um, I don't get why this is gonna put money in Vince's pocket, and he'll probably buy like a try to run for president or something with it. If he even has money, like he's been losing money anyway, which makes him monopolizing WWE even more weird. So in any case, ranch over. I expect Becky after that package, where Vince is like, also the other thing that was weird. He says stay in your lane, and I was like, that's totally unnecessary, and it's not even PG. You're just pushing a PG product. It doesn't feel like an attitude era product. It just feels like you're being sexist. So anyway, he says that, and Becky is like, it's not. I don't feel. It's like a storyline thing, like the Michael Cole thing, where everyone's stressed out about being upset when he was like being like Word to the Queen. Um, it's a storyline, and I think it's working. And everyone's like, the only problem is if they don't listen, which happens before. But I don't think they won't listen. Like I'm pretty sure Becky Lynch is going to get that world title, or she's going to get a big WrestleMania event, something man, or Vince, or Shane, or some McMahon. For all I know, it's Linda, or one of the toddlers tagged with Braun Strowman, who will pin Becky Lynch at the main event. That could be a thing that people are worried about, but I don't think no WWE fans have thought that far ahead. So in any case, Becky Lynch, calm your jets. Becky Lynch is perfectly fine. It's Mania time when you're conservative and you give people what they want. Sports Illustrated, so that's why the storyline is so obvious. And thank goodness, because like when they don't do obvious stuff, like it ends up being really terrible. Like I like Jimmy Jacobs, Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho storylines. I don't like Jim McCall driving to a hot dog or something. So that should be fine. Be her versus McMahon's or her versus Charlotte, but it'll be a good. Should be a Mania. It'll be a good moment. I'm pretty confident in that. I bet these last couple of Raws have been pretty awful. What are your thoughts on Becky Lynch, Bob Iger, Vince McMahon, Apex Legends? Apex Legends I'll get you in like a video game rant later. Like, I'm subscribed.